from the perspective of knowing the truth of what Ernest Holmes teaches here. Not much more to say than that, but I'm very pleased that I could do it. And everybody enjoy a brilliant day.
Thank you, Bob. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm excited to see how spirit flows. The meditation was amazing, and it was so linked to what I'm talking about. Now, I know that y'all follow the global themes, and for this month, it's been pulled by the vision. And the global vision statement that relates to today is, we see a world in which each and every person lives in alignment with his or her highest spiritual principle, emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other. A world in which individually and collectively we're called to a higher state of consciousness and action. I love this vision where we're aligned with principle and collectively called to this higher state of consciousness. But how do we get to this higher state of consciousness? What brings us into this alignment with each other? For most of us, I think the first step is to free our minds from our own limited ideas. That's what I thought was so wonderful about the meditation, is bringing up that we have all these rooted ideas, these beliefs that block our good, that stop us getting to this state of higher consciousness. So we have to let go of these beliefs. We have to let go of our own bias and judgment. It doesn't matter what the belief is or where or when we got it. What we need to do is let it go and let them all go. I'm not saying it's easy. There's lots of techniques out there, and we have to work at it. Right? Some of these beliefs, they are so strong, and they've been there for so long that they're second nature. We're running on autopilot, and at some point we may not even know or be aware that they're limiting. It's just something we do. I know that one of the limiting beliefs that's been a challenge for me, and I know that it's a challenge for a lot of people, is not good enough. I can remember as a child, I'd get upset because the boys got to do all the good stuff. Girls had all these extra rules to follow, and it just seemed like boys had all this freedom. And so I think about that, and I'm guessing that's this cultural bias that played a part in my version of not good enough. It's something that was fostered by what I saw as this difference of how I could be and how I wasn't allowed to be. And I'm pretty sure that most of us have felt not good enough at one time or another. It's like we didn't get picked for a team, we failed a test, whatever it was, that feeling came up. And if we let it go, that's great. It didn't impact us. But when we let the event define who we are, that's when it limits who we can be. When we create a story, we make a judgment, and it becomes this belief that starts running our lives, because once we have this belief, our events, things that happen in our life, get filtered through this belief so that we can validate it, keep it strong in our consciousness. It becomes part of who we are. I mean, every time I didn't live up to someone's expectations or didn't get something right, I reinforced that idea of not good enough. I'm guessing some of you have done that too. It's just so easy to fall into that habit of taking this as truth. Even after a time, we don't even need to have an outside circumstance reinforce this belief. It just comes from inside. It's an ever running tape letting us know this is who we are, even though it's just a story. And so we change our way of being. I mean, we may, with not good enough. I've seen some people just stop trying, or they settle for less. Or my go-to was just to spend all my energy trying to prove that it wasn't true. And how many other are overachievers here? That's a good sign. You may have some of this not good enough. So there's a lot of different beliefs that we bring up for ourselves, and sometimes we acquire other people's beliefs. For the longest time, I had this belief that the French people were rude and they didn't like Americans. Now, I'd never met a person from France. I just listened to other people and I accepted what they said and the stories I read at the time. And then this belief limited me because I didn't want to be exposed to their rudeness. I decided that I didn't want to go to France. It didn't matter how many cool places were in France. The French people were mean, so I'm not going to go there. I know this is a silly example, but I just wanted to show that not all of our beliefs and biases are from our own experience. I'm sure that each one of you can think of a belief that doesn't serve you, that came from your parents, maybe from a teacher, maybe from a friend. It wasn't anything in your experience, just something that you heard, it resonated, and you brought it in to your experience, your way of being. And there are so many limiting beliefs out there that this is really easy to do. And I think it's unfortunate that they're not doled out one to a person. I mean, how awesome would that be if we each only had to deal with one limiting belief? It would be a piece of cake. We'd get rid of it in no time. I think the self-help industry would crumble, though. There would be nothing to catch people with. Whether the belief is not good enough or too young, too old, too poor, too rich, too thin, too fat, and a lot deeper beliefs. These are all just the surface ones that we see just looking out in the world. And they're all just opinions and stories that we accepted. And when we accept them, we limit our life. They keep us from our good. They keep us caught in this pattern of living from and reacting from our small self, that human side that forgets that we're more than our experiences, that we're not small. They keep us from living, these beliefs just keep us from living from our big S self, that soul self, that God self. And, I don't know about you, but my life is so much better when I'm living from my big S self, when I'm living from my soul, from my God self. When I can tap in to that higher consciousness, life works. I'm more loving. There's less chaos and life just works. I don't know why there's less chaos. Maybe there's this greater energy around me because I'm connected to spirit. But that's been my experience. There's less chaos and life works. And so I think, what if we can tap into that higher consciousness and free ourselves from our limiting beliefs at the same time? I think this is one of the benefits of spiritual mind treatment. We can use that to tap in and let go and create new beliefs. And when I first started learning spiritual mind treatment and doing my treatments, the focus was on manifesting in the material world. I was just wanting certain things, and I wanted to bring them into my life, get the conditions that I desired. And I mean, it was a wonderful use of science of mind treatment, the spiritual mind treatment. I just was able to see that it worked. And I still use it for things that I desire, for how I want the world to be when I have a difficult conversation. That was like the first time that I could really know in my heart that that spiritual mind treatment and science of mind works. I would have a difficult conversation that I needed to have with someone, and I would stop and do a treatment. And I would always be amazed at how easily we communicated. I can be kind of snarky at times, and none of that would be there. It would be just a place of love. I would be in truth in what happened, not in any kind of blame, and I would listen. And I still love that part of spiritual mind treatment, that it impacts that daily work in my life. But what if the more powerful purpose of affirmative prayer and spiritual mind treatment is to free us from our own limiting ideas and beliefs? What if we can use treatment to free our minds so the rest can follow? If we want to see our vision, that vision of a world in which individually and collectively we're called to a higher state of consciousness and action, we need a deeper awareness of God and a connection with God. And since everything is God, when we have this deeper unity with God, we have a deeper connection with each other and all of life. So this connection in higher consciousness is the power that frees us from our limiting beliefs and allows that rest to follow, that life that we are promised. In the Science of Mind text, Ernest Holmes says, the recognition of the presence of God or good automatically wipes out any picture of undesirable conditions. For the Spirit of God is a law of elimination and obliteration to everything unlike itself. I love that word, obliteration. It just is like, boom. Whatever wasn't working is gone when I recognize the presence of God. And so I know when I'm in that first step of treatment and I'm focused on that presence and power of God, I feel good. I don't have the worries in life. I'm not bombarded by anything going on outside. There's an uplifting in my soul, and I feel a sense of peace and excitement at the same time. It's like I'm just in this space, in that presence of the divine. And when I identify with God in step 2, it's like any limiting ideas or beliefs I may have had, they no longer have power, because who I am is the divine, and everything else, it's obliterated. So I'm free from that chatter in my mind that the Spirit of God has wiped out everything unlike itself. And then I get into that third step, and I get to replace those limiting beliefs that I had. I replace them with empowering statements that affirm who I am and who I choose to be. I'm changing my thoughts. I'm freeing myself from that old way of thinking. Now, Ernest Holm also says that the highest realization we can have is a recognition of the omnipresence of spirit. This will set greater possibilities in motion and will automatically provide a better concept of life. This is that place when we recognize the omnipresence of spirit. This sets in motion all the rest that follows, because we're led and guided. We're automatically open to greater possibilities, and our lives get better. Spiritual mind treatment, I think it's one of the best tools that we can use to help break our habits of limiting beliefs and create our best life ever. Now, when we treat with a clear purpose, we change what's happening in our minds. And when that happens, we change what's happening in our lives. I know that I've said a lot about our limiting beliefs, and I feel it's important to let them go. I think that's true for any thought that's blocking our good. We need to be aware of these thoughts and these beliefs, and then choose better thoughts. And what is it that helps us see where we're limiting ourselves? I think it's this growing our awareness, growing our understanding of God, growing our connection with spirit that awakens us, that allows us to see these limiting beliefs. Building that relationship with spirit raises our consciousness so we can see what's good for us and what's not so good for us. You know, I always think of at Einstein that you can't solve the problem from the consciousness that created it. I know that you've all heard that before, but that's part of why we build this relationship with spirit, so that we can step in to that greater consciousness that allows us to see what we're believing and change it. I think spiritual mind treatment can help us grow our awareness and understanding of spirit. It's like an active way to create a deeper connection. When I first did treatment, I used to focus on the realization step. I thought that was the most important step. And even when I was told multiple times that the most important part are steps 1 and 2, you know, I still recognized God, and I knew that I was one with God. But my feelings and energy went into that realization step. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't be there, but that was where all my energy was. It was on what I wanted to happen. And it took me a while to realize that focusing on what I wanted to happen without spending enough time in steps 1 and 2 took a lot more energy and a fair amount of convincing myself that what I wanted was truly mine. I mean, a lot of words were going into this step. And once I connected my consciousness to the understanding that steps 1 and 2 are where the power is, everything changed in my treatment. I finally got it, that connection with God is the driving force of treatment. And beyond that, that's the driving force in my life. When I was so focused on convincing myself that what I wanted was mine, I was often tired after a treatment. And now when I treat and focus on who and what God is, I'm deepening my awareness and connection with God. I'm opening to that wisdom and inspiration of the divine. And I know that this wisdom and inspiration lives within me, and I don't need to convince myself that what I desire is mine. In this new way of treating, I have this confidence and certainty that just exists within me when I speak my word. I don't have to plan the words, they flow through me. And the more that I treat and connect with God in these first two steps, I feel closer to God. I have this deeper knowing of God within me. And my treatments become more of guidance, inspiration, and connection. And I think that's where we make our biggest shift. In the environmental philosopher Glenn Albrecht, he describes oneness with nature as a feeling where the boundaries between the self and the rest of nature are obliterated. There's that word again. And a deep sense of peace and connectedness pervade consciousness. Let's say that. A feeling where the boundaries between the self and the rest of nature are obliterated, and a deep sense of peace and connectedness pervade consciousness. This is the feeling that I want to experience when I treat. I want to be in that space where I can allow divine wisdom within me to rise into my consciousness. I can feel that oneness, and it guides my steps and helps me realize my purpose as a point of God. When we pray to experience this oneness of God, we can easily recognize the limits we have imposed on our mind and let them go. We're easily guided into the thoughts and ideas that support and expand our experience of life, that which supports us. John O'Donohue wrote this poem, Rebel Thriver, in To Bless the Space Between Us. And in it, he says, "Let there be an opening into the quiet that lies beneath the chaos, where you find the peace you did not think possible and see what shimmers in the storm. Let there be an opening into the quiet that lies beneath the chaos, where you find the peace you did not think possible and see what shimmers within the storm." Spiritual mind treatment gives us that opening into the quiet place beneath the chaos of life. It's where we can find our gems of inspiration and truth. So I want to invite you to look at the beliefs and ideas that are limiting you and go deeper with your treatments to let those beliefs go. Know that as you connect, God obliterates them, and all you need to do is fill that space with the affirmations of what you truly want in life. Now, let your prayers, let your treatments expand to deepen your awareness of God within and your connection with all that there is. There's so much good waiting for you. All you need to do is tap into it. And spiritual mind treatment is a pretty good tool to do that. Thank you for letting me share my thoughts.
Thank you, Laura. I appreciate you digging in there with the feeling. When you mentioned your feelings about that section, the top section, bringing that in. I felt similar exhaustion in the middle section too, was the hardest one for me to really grasp. And the more that I dug into the top two, it made that easier. So I can totally relate with that. I'm sure, do we have any questions? You can just give me a wave or let me know. Go ahead and speak up. Yeah, there you go, Bob. Go ahead.
I was wondering, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I was wondering if you would just give a brief overview of what prayer is for you and go through the steps, so some of the folks listening can get your insight into the scientific nature of what we do. it's not really prayer the way I was taught as a child. So
Right. For me, and within science of mind, spiritual mind treatment it's not a supplication to God. It's a way to get clear and affirm the truth, to know what your truth is. And there's 5 general steps. And the first step is to recognize that everything is God, that God is all there is, and bring in that full knowing of the presence and the power of God. And then in the second step, it's identification, knowing that I am a point of God. I am God expressing as me. I'm this unique expression, and I'm still one with all that is. God is living in me and breathing as me. And then when I have that feeling and that knowing that I'm in that oneness, I go to step 3, which is the realization step, where I affirm what it is that I believe, what it is I may want. I believe that I say in confident terms, I know that I am this bright light. I know that my relationships are wonderful and flourishing. I know that prosperity flows through me and to me. I am affirming everything that I know is mine, just because I am that expression of God, and everything is there for us. And in the 4th step, it's gratitude. It's getting into that space of being grateful to knowing that everything that I've affirmed is already here. Grateful for this powerful way of being in the world, and for the treatment, for whatever you're grateful for. Just bring in that energy of gratitude. Gratitude amplifies all that we want. It sends that message into the law, that medium that takes our words and makes it happen. We don't make anything happen. We're using this science treatment, the steps, to let the law know, to let the universal substance know what we want, so that it goes and has it manifest in our physical world, in our belief patterns. And that gratitude raises that energy to make it powerful. And from this place of gratitude, go into step 5, which is release, where you let this word go with complete confidence that what you've stated is true, that it's here in your life. You let it go, you let God, and the treatment is done. It doesn't need to run through your mind. You've completed it. You've let it go, and you let God do its thing. So that's my way of praying and my understanding.
Yeah, good afternoon, Madam Laura. Yeah, I'm kind of in my senior years, and as I was growing up, I was kind of brainwashed into, not brainwashed, but like the Bible is a good source of principles and virtues, but you cannot take it all literally, because I was told by even parishioners, oh, we are all born, we are all sinners. We are not sinners. We only sin when we miss the mark, and there is nothing like a sin as such. What was virtue in the ancestral times is today a sin. You can see the slavery. Slavery was taken as a way of life and all, and they said, oh, God accepts us to have slaves. But today, with the evolution and the consciousness of humanity, we realize those so-called virtues are where they were using God as a scapegoat, and those type of things are now coming up, and everything is being debunked. And we thank humanity for developing the World Wide Web, which is www, because now nobody can say that they are inspired only per se, that you have to just listen to one source of consciousness. No, everyone has that light of God. Light of God means the light of humanity, and God itself is just a common noun. To me, God is knowledge. What mankind acted on the knowledge of God is not the knowledge of God today. So, I mean, if so, this is how I look at it. If anybody, you or anybody on the panel would like to, participants want to share their thoughts, I would love to listen. Thank you.
Well, God is in everything. And there's wisdom in the Bible. There's wisdom in every teacher that you come across, every book that you read. And the web has, like I said, it's opened it up to all of us. And it's up to us to take what resonates with us to deepen our own understanding of God and of life, and what we can be and do to be a light in the world. And I think that consciousness is really expanding, because there is so much out there that's positive, and people are coming to understand that, God is not out there judging us. That's something that we do. That God presence is all that wisdom that is waiting for us to uncover.
Thank you.
I have a question. I appreciate so much of, what you said with the rooting out our beliefs, and that's so paramount. I mean, I think in my personal life in the last few months, I really see or now have the awareness of those limiting beliefs. And I appreciate how you said that they can come from others, because sometimes we adopt the dogma of others, and then we internalize it and make it our own, and it's not really our truth. So thank you so much for sharing all of that wise wisdom and truth. But when you say God is in everything, and I agree with that, but then I struggle with, like, looking back at humanity, and like Kushner mentioned, slavery, like when you see war, or you see widespread disaster, or when you see mass violent shootings, how, as a peaceful human being, as a person of God, how do you stay in that place, or understanding, or, how do you comprehend, when you see the fallout and the ripple effect of war, or third world nations, in peril because of government choices, or countries at odds? Like, how do you address that?
Yeah, a lot of times my first inclination is go into the sadness and the anger, and then I remember what Reverend Michael Beckwith said, and he watched the news so that he would know what he needs to pray for, where he needs to put his consciousness to uplift what's going on. And I always think that, I used to think that, oh gosh, God is here experiencing, and he's it, whatever, it's experiencing everything. And I was grateful that I was not the person that was experiencing murder or war. And because I feel God is wanting to experience everything. That's why we're all different. And all of that stuff happening through people doesn't mean that they're bad people. They're making mistakes. They're separate from God. They're living from those beliefs, and living from fear. So I try to stay in that place and not give my energy to the war, to the bad, because what I focus on increases. And if I'm focusing on that and getting caught up in that emotion, I'm creating the energy that could help perpetuate it. So I'm trying to step back, and yes, I get upset, and then I have to catch myself and go, no, this is not the truth. There's love underneath this, and it will rise to the surface. That's how I keep myself in there.
So like instead of focusing on the after effect, you can like pray for the consciousness of the individuals caught up in the struggle, in the conflicts, and pray that they can find a peaceful solution or remedy.
We're praying for them, and we have to keep raising our own consciousness, because we're all one. And every time that we have a higher thought, it ripples out. It ripples out, and our thoughts touch. And as all of us continue to do that, it's part of the process to shift that energy. So it's knowing that they are on the path to find their love inside, but it's also increasing our own.
Thank you so much.
Great job, Laura. I had asked Laura, I said, you willing to take questions? She says, well, I don't know if I'll have the right answer, but I'm telling you, you're hitting it right on right now. That was 3. Is there one more question from anybody that we'd like to give you a chance to ask, Laura? All right, then. You have a spiritual mind treatment for us, Laura, today.
Yes, love that. Oh gosh, just settle into this energy, into this space of community, and open our hearts and recognize that God is here, shining forth in every heart, in every heartbeat. There is only that one divine presence, that one spark of wisdom, that allness that I see, and that immense unknown that is still opening to me, because God is everything. The Alpha, the Omega, the beginning, the end. There is nothing else. Only that divine wisdom, that love, that beauty, peace, and power. That presence, being all that is who I am. God lives and breathes, has his being in, through, and as me. And being in this oneness, knowing that we're all one, this is who each one of us is. God is expressing as each one of us. We are the divine here in form. And knowing that this power is mine, that I am speaking as that expression of God. I know that each of our lives are uplifted, our awareness is increased, and we recognize all of those limiting beliefs that have been running our life. We bless them and we let them go. They have served their purpose and are no longer needed. This is a time of knowing that God is here and that the new thoughts are what run our lives. I know that we are always guided. We're always inspired by the divine. And each of us opens our heart and our mind to that connection to change our lives. And as we change our lives, we change the world. I am so, so grateful for this teaching. I am grateful for this powerful affirmative prayer that we've been given. I'm grateful for the wisdom of God that flows through me. I'm grateful for the limiting beliefs that I've already released, for the new ones that I'm finding, and that power and presence that helps me release. I'm grateful for this process. And in this wonderful place of gratitude and knowing I just step into this confidence and I let it go, knowing that God has already heard my word, that it's already manifest, that it is here now, and our lives are blessed. And so, yes.
So it is. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Laura, this is normally the time in our service when we offer our collection. And we have a little prayer I'd like to lead. If you could take your gifts and your blessings for the center and place them in your hands over your heart and repeat after me. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, in me. Laura, could you speak to the giving process, if you would? How do you take that? How do you respond to that?
That's part of being in the flow.
Okay.
We give from our hearts, and it comes back around abundantly. When we stop that cycle of giving, our lives shrink. And when we stop and think that there's not enough, then there's not enough. So giving from our heart, we step into that place of abundance and flow. And that's just the process of God.
That's right, the law of circulation there. That's awesome. I'd like to thank everyone for your continuing support of the center. We really appreciate it.